Mesoamerica is a region that includes the southern part of what is now Mexico and parts of the northern countries of Central America. The first people, who were hunters and gatherers, came to America from Asia in 12,500 BC by crossing the Bering Strait, which is a land bridge. They didn't settle in one place that long due to their search outs for food. They eventually settled in a region with rich soils, warm temperatures, and plenty of rain, and their population eventually grew. People started to experiment with seeds and they learned how to farm maize, beans, and squash. The Olmec, also known as the Mother Culture, were the first urban civilization in Mesoamerica around 1200 BC. They built the first pyramids in America, and they also built temples on top of the pyramids. They created huge stone heads that represented different Olmec rulers. Scientists found an Olmec artifact that may be an early form of writing, and they may have also had a calendar. The Olmec were very successful in trading and traded along the Pacific coast. They formed civilizations after they domesticated and learned how to farm, which encouraged people to establish permanent cities and villages. Unfortunately, the Olmec civilization ended in 400 BC. The Maya civilization developed in Mesoamerica around 1000 BC and they lived in small villages. They built their homes out of wood poles, vines, and mud. The villages started to trade with each other, and trade helped support larger populations and villages grew. Maya cities in the highlands traded with people in the lowlands, so people got things that they didn't have nearby. Cotton, rubber trees, and cacao were some of the things that the people in the lowlands traded because it was warm where they lived, so they could provide those items. Jade and obsidian, which are valuable stones, were some of the goods the people in the highlands traded. Maya cities had large stone pyramids, temples, and palaces. Maya cities usually battled with each other to gain power and land. The damage was so bad that scholars believe it may be the reason why the Maya civilization declined in the 900s. Warfare, climate changes, demands of the king, and not enough food are believed to be some of the reasons why the Maya civilization ended. The kings held the highest position in society, and priests, warriors, and merchants were part of the upper class as well. The Maya believed their rulers were related to the gods. Outside of the city was where most of the lower class Mayas lived, and they were farming families. Lower class Maya had to pay the rulers and give some of their crops to them too. Slaves held the lowest position in society, and they sometimes served the upper class. They worshipped many gods related to different aspects of their daily life, but the creator was the most important. They worship the sun god, moon goddess, maize god, etc. They believe their gods need blood to prevent disasters or end the world, so every person pierced their tongue or skin. Sometimes, they made human sacrifices in which they usually killed captured prisoners. They built observatories and they discovered that a year's 365 days long, cycles of the moon, how to predict eclipses, and they created a number system. They created calendars to plan religious events and farming activities. The Mayas developed a writing system that had symbols representing both objects and sounds. Stories got passed down into each generation, and Maya legends and history were written in a book called the Popol Vuh. The first Aztecs were farmers, and they settled in the middle of Lake Texcoco, since they found out that the other tribes had taken all the good farmland. War, tribute, and trade made the Aztecs rich and stronger. The Aztecs built causeways to make it easier for the people to travel and trade. They also built aqueducts to bring fresh water to the city, since Tenochtitlan was surrounded by undrinkable water. Hernan Cortez and his conquistadors reached Mexico in 1519 while searching for gold. Moctezuma II believed Hernan to be a god, so he sent him gifts and gold. Hernan killed Moctezuma, and he conquered Tenochtitlan in 1521. In Aztec societies, they were organized in groups called capullis, and they are communities that shared land, schools, and a temple. The king was the most important person in the Aztec society, and he was in charge of law, trade and tribute, and warfare. Since the king couldn't manage all of that by himself, he had people help him, such as nobles. Priests had to keep calendars to decide when to plant crops or perform ceremonies, pass down Aztec histories and stories, perform various religious ceremonies. The warriors fought for new lands and people, which brought them more tribute and trade goods. Merchants gathered goods from all over Mesoamerica and sold them in the main market. Artisans made a wide variety of goods that people needed. Farmers just grew crops, and most of the slaves were captured, so they were sometimes sold or sacrificed to the gods. The Aztecs believed that their gods' powers could be seen in nature, kings, and ancestors. Priests would sacrifice many victims to feed their gods human hearts and blood, because they believed they would make them stronger. The Aztecs had a calendar, learned about plants that could be used as medicine, made the Codex, which is an ancient book full of their complex writing system, and created many stories and riddles that were passed down each generation. A ruler named Pachacuti led the Incas to expand their territory, and the empire was so huge that it stretched from northern Ecuador to central Chile. The Incas created a language called Quechua in order to unify their empire since so many people spoke different languages. Government officials would distribute goods collected through the Mira because there are no merchants or markets in the empire. Atahualpa, an Inca ruler, agreed to meet Francisco Pizarro and his conquistadors. Atahualpa refused to convert to Christianity when the Spaniards told him to, so they attacked him, which led to the death of Atahualpa and thousands of Inca soldiers. The king, priests, and government officials made up the Inca upper class. Upper class families lived in stone houses, wore the best clothes, didn't have to pay the labor tax, and had servants. Since there are no slaves in the Inca society, most Incas were farmers, artisans, or servants. Children didn't go to school because their parents taught them how to work, but some young girls did go to school to learn weaving, cooking, and religion. These lower-class Incas lived out of Cusco in small houses and they wore plain clothes. Many people in the Inca Empire worshipped many gods, but the sun god was most important to their religion. The Incas thought their kings never really died because they believed they were related to the sun god. As a result, priests brought the mummies of former kings to many ceremonies so the people could give them food, gifts, and ask for advice. The Incas usually sacrificed llamas, cloth, or food, and they rarely sacrificed humans. Many Inca buildings in Cusco are still being used to this day. They built roads and rope bridges to connect all parts of the empire. Because of the stories, songs, dances, and religious practices passed down orally and written down in records, we know about the Incas and their culture.
Happy llama, sad llama, mentally disturbed llama, super llama, drama llama, big fat mama llama.